Welcome to Business Reporter's Supporting SMEs campaign. I'm Rachel Hicks. An estimated 3 billion litres of water is wasted in the UK every day, and that's just the water lost through leaking transport pipes. There are further losses at the point of use, such as business sites, public buildings, and in our homes. That puts extra strain on our water supplies and causes unnecessary CO2 emissions, as well as an extra cost to businesses. How can businesses eradicate water loss and manage water strategically? That's what we're going to learn from Tony March, Director of Public Sector and Industrial Customers at Wave, a leading water retailer. So Tony, why should businesses think of water as a strategic asset?
First reason is that we all need to use water to operate. Water also has a cost with it, so there's an opportunity that comes with that to manage that cost and to actually reduce that cost. The other thing to consider is that water isn't an infinite resource and it is running out. We have got increased water demand, and it has been estimated that by 2040 we could have a shortfall. The other driver for this is net zero.
Let's focus on net zero for a moment. Why
Yes.
are we going to need more water than we currently use to reach net zero in the future?
The big picture is we have to look forward to become net zero in the UK. And I think the key things around that for the large industrial customers certainly is to look at changes for how they operate. One main change that they're looking at is carbon capture. So what they'll effectively do is capture, trap any carbon that's emitted from that site. That'll be transported from the site and it will be stored underground safely. The other technology that's being considered is hydrogen production, which will replace fossil fuels. Both those techniques require vast amounts of water to move the CO2 and also to produce the hydrogen itself.
So there's clearly a huge amount that businesses need to think about when it comes to considering their use of water.
Yes.
What are the main challenges in your view that UK businesses are facing with water?
I think the first one, and maybe arguably the key one, is actually understanding water. It's something that sometimes isn't understood, and that's certainly not a criticism. I think water is something that's readily available and can be forgotten about sometimes. It could be that they're a multi-site organisation with several hundred sites. What they need to do to actually collate their information, pull that information together and understand how they are using water isn't straightforward, particularly if they have a number of water retailers that actually supply them at the moment. The other key issues I see are around losing the water that you then have on the site there. So that could be through leakage, going out of the pipes on the site, going underground. The other one is the fittings and the processes themselves there. And I think the final challenge we have is that water resources are getting more stringent, they are getting more tight, and we need more water. So we're protecting our environment and we all need to do that, but there will be restrictions in the future on abstraction which will impact the water companies and impact customers as well.
There's a lot to think about here. Restrictions, there's the consideration of water.
We can forecast more water being needed over the coming years, but actually we're going to have less water resources, so we have to make more of what we've got.
So in that case, how does Wave help businesses tackle those challenges that we've just been talking about, water insecurity and so on?
Wave are a water retailer, and I guess the best way I can describe that is thinking about your home energy bill. So for a long time now, you've been able to buy your gas and electricity from the retailer that you choose. Business water is exactly the same way as well. So in terms of where we would then help, we would be looking at gaining that knowledge with the customer in terms of how they're using water. So the multi-site customer example that I gave earlier, we would work with them to collate that information, to look historically at water consumption and look at the opportunities going forward that they would actually have there. Part of those opportunities could be around the infrastructure themselves as well. So pipes tend to be old. When things get old, they can leak. And that is one of the issues that we do regularly see with customers. Not just the pipes. People sometimes think they have a leak, but actually it's water fittings or it's processes that are causing that water loss as well. The final part of this is that reduction in water resources availability there, and there's a key part for Wave to play in that process, working closely with the customer to understand what their long-term water requirements are, so that we can all work together with the local water companies and with regulators just to ensure that we've got long-term water resource plans in place to be able to deliver what we all need to deliver in the long term.
So it sounds as though working together in a partnership, you'd be able to help a company reach better strategic aims and environmental aims,
Yes.
managing its water. What do you actually do on the ground?
We have a water efficiency team within Wave that has been embedded and a key part of Wave for a lot of years now. So they're very experienced, they understand customers' needs across all of the different customer sectors. They also have a very good understanding of the water industry. A good example of another service would be automatic meter reading. It reduces the number of physical reads that you have to do, but provides you with an awful lot more data around how customers are actually using water at that supply point there. More importantly, it tells us when they're using water, when they shouldn't be using water there as well. Once we've got that information and we've highlighted the opportunities, that's when we get on the ground to do the investigations on site to identify specifically where they are in terms of leaks, in terms of inefficiencies, and also in terms of fixing them at that final stage there as well.
So you clearly have a really comprehensive approach to sorting out companies and their usage of water. Can you give us a case study of a company that you've worked with and how you've addressed their water usage?
Yeah, definitely. The one that really comes to mind is a food production site that we worked on. When we first started working with that customer, they had high water consumption and actually it was increasing. They also had trade effluent problems on site where they were getting close to compliance issues with the local water company. We worked closely with the management team to understand exactly how they were using water on the site. That enabled us to produce a detailed water balance for the site. We also observed behaviours on the site as well. So for example, how were the different shift patterns working? How were the cleaning regimes working? What equipment were they actually using? We identified water savings as well. And the results were pretty startling, to be honest. So we ended up with a 30% water saving on that site. We ended up with trade effluent compliance on the site, and that avoided any capital expenditure. The water company, local water company, were really happy because the site was comfortably compliant there as well. And the staff were well engaged with that as well.
So that's a real success story, from
Without
top to
a doubt.
bottom,
Yes.
which is great. What are the 3 key takeaways you'd like people watching today to take with them?
Water is a strategic asset, treat it that way. If we don't, you'll pay too much for it now, but also you will end up with resource issues in the future. I think secondly, is your current water retailer giving you the service that you need to think about your short, medium and long-term plans? And that leads into the third one, which if they're not, please reach out to Wave. We'd love to talk to you. We'd love to work with you.
Tony March, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.